I never tire of my beauty. It must be a sin to be this lovely.
Hello, War of the Visions fans. Today I'm going to be doing a Folka showcase as she finally has her limit burst. It's been a little while, and I've definitely been playing around with how to play her. She can be a little bit more of a difficult unit to slot into teams than Veritas of the Winds. Veritas of the Winds has a really obvious way that he's played, and he does very well in that. But I think that this particular team has a lot of interesting capabilities. They're not particularly bad, and they're definitely very good against a specific team or two. Now, I think that playing Folka is going to require you to know what she's good at, what the rest of your team is good at, how she can synergize with that, and how she can make the most of it. I do think she has some potential to be used even into the higher tier of the meta. And I've seen her on some really good teams, but it also seems like a lot of people are having trouble making this girl really work. Even one of the better of us in the game, Ready Player Will, actually, his Folka showcase is kind of hilarious. And I'm not gonna lie, it actually, I've tried to do a Folka showcase a couple of times, and I ran into some really, really similar problems. However, with the arena being what it is this week, there are a lot of Sephiroths for us to face off against, and for basically every unit on my team, being cursed could be a serious problem. Now, I'm not running any sort of curse resistance or mitigation, because I didn't realize that those things existed. But they do. I'm not sure if this was a thing on JP or if it was something that was released alongside Sephiroth and people didn't notice for a little bit, but there are ways to deal with curse now. Yay! And Folka has them. The other thing that I want to point out about Folka, I showed you her TMR. She's running the Bladestream. Now, the reason that she's running the Bladestream is because she has the ability Still Waters. Still Waters is going to help reinforce her against certain magic teams by giving her resistances to some of their worst status ailments. But at the same time, it is also going to give her the Emerald Echo effect that I was talking about in my previous video. When I was talking about how to counter Sephiroth and how to take the AP denial strategy just a little bit further to the point where it might be able to be a little bit more effective and a little bit more broadly annoying to people. So she has the ability to make her debuffs affect people for one turn longer. Again, I'm not super sure how this is interacting with this type of stuff. It's a little bit hard to demonstrate, but I think this increases the duration of the debuffs for Bladestream, which makes her basically the ideal Bladestream user in a lot of ways. And unfortunately, as you're seeing in this particular fight, this can kind of cause her to Bladestream and then get baited, so she doesn't really do any of her support stuff, which isn't great. This is kind of always a drawback with the Bladestream in that having a highly prioritized single target buff is not great. Most characters move laterally, like they move from side to side first because they want to use their buddy buffs first, and this keeps them on the back row and allows them to get more of their buff rotation out before coming into combat. The way that Bladestream works, though, basically every character casts this first and immediately runs forward, which can put them in range of stuff and give them some serious problems. Also, while I did get a nice cure-off there with Veritas of the Waters, I'm not really sure running her as a white mage is quite the way to go, especially on this team. This team has a lot of other stuff that works really well for it. And while we do good into Sephiroth, we can have some serious trouble if he curses us. Thankfully, and I haven't checked every iteration of Isunaga to see if this is the case, but thankfully, specifically the one that is in her main sub-job for Folka does deal with curse. something I didn't realize until like halfway into this video, or I probably would have been running that because, look, these other characters can heal themselves. They're fine. They don't need her to be a white mage on this team. She can focus on damage. Just give us some re-raise, give us some elemental resistances. Maybe, as I noted in my countering Sephiroth video, giving especially water units elemental resistances can be a little bit tricky and a little bit of an issue when it comes to Sephiroth because it can trigger him to use his limit break. But if we can deal with Curse, that might not be as big of a deal. Although that's not something I'm really going to demonstrate in this video because I didn't quite realize that until a little bit later on. But in theory, Isunaga could cure Curse on herself and others in a large area of effect. It could be essentially the anti-slaughter, which could be really helpful for her. Now, this could be one of many ways that she synergizes really well with June the Spring Celestial already. So let's talk about some of those. She's a really strong anti-magic character. She has a lot of statuses that throw mages off their game. So a lot of ways to fuck with mages. June's kit is also very good into anti-magic, so these two are really good anti-magic pairing. Throwing the Bladestream in here, we've got some AP restore hate, we've also got a little bit of attack hate, given her extra buff turn. That at the very least, I know that attack down debuff is going to be lasting for at least 3 turns. Which, I mean, still might not see it into combat all that much, but it does essentially put a layer of cushioning foam on all of their blunt weapons, at least for like that first turn that they're interacting with us. The characters that aren't having their damage blunted in the same way are the mages that, as you can see, we're doing pretty well against the mages. It's going to be these physical units over here that are a bit of a problem. One of the reasons that I like to use this team to counter Light specifically is that this team is really good into Helena the Black Rose. This is a fairly good counter for her. In one part, because June is just a good anti-magic unit, her Limit Burst also removes the larger area effect style resistance that Helena can give not only to herself but others. So this is a really powerful way that she keeps her team safe, and it can be entirely dispelled by June. So that's pretty powerful there. Also, both June to a degree, but also with Still Waters, Folka has 100% sleep resistance. So having a lot of sleep resistance, but also stun, and a lot of other, like, a lot of the mage teams that really throw a lot of statuses at you, she has the ability to fully nullify a lot of those statuses. So going into like the Vivi Helena composition, she would just be amazing because she would basically be resilient to all of their statuses, which can turn around even games that they shouldn't be winning. Now, the other members of my team might still have problems with those statuses, and that could still be an issue. Like, this is not foolproof, but she definitely works well into that team as well. This is definitely one of those situations where I think I'm going to lose, even though it was my game to lose. One of the big issues and I'm not going to say that this is, I don't want to make too big a deal about this. I don't want people to remember this the wrong way. But slot 1 Sephiroth on this map has been a real trouble for this team in this particular formation, because 2 of my most healing heavy characters are over here, just lined up to be able to get slaughtered all at the same time. Not that slaughter is always the worst thing to happen. I think in this particular match, my June actually makes it to the other side of her curse. But as you can see, we're definitely in a bad situation. We did get on the other side of the curse before a threshold heal hit, so we still got our threshold heal despite being cursed. Very interesting. And like, honestly, if June could get some HP heals up, maybe she could have a better shot at winning this, but Against in a mirror match against herself, she's has too many disadvantages right now, even with the re-raise, to really be able to win this match back. Yeah. But we did pretty good up until this point, and that match was a pretty long, drag-out match. We could have won that in a number of ways. That was ours to lose, I think. And really, like, if I had lined up the Slaughter differently, if I had lined up the Sephiroth differently, and even if I move where my units are placed, I can deal with slot 1 Sephiroth better. But in slot 3 against this team, he's a lot less troubling because he's going to line up with Elda exclusively. Elda has a lot of healing in his kit, a lot of powerful healing, self-healing in his kit. But and there, I'm just going to add even more self-healing into his kit. So it will suck if he gets cursed. But as a physical unit, he does have a reduced chance to be cursed compared to a lot of, well, at least compared to Folka. I guess June probably has equal chances. And for this team especially, I should probably be running anti-curse trust runes. Yeah, those exist. I didn't realize this was a thing either. Again, until making this video, and I was like, I should just craft a trust rune and see what happens. And it turned out to be a perfect anti-curse one. So, nice. But as you can see, this team does really well into evasion. I'm running Folka with the Alexandrite ring, which is pushing her accuracy up about as much as I can. I could probably go a little bit further if I changed around maybe some other things on her. But largely, I'm trying to make it so that I think it's Calamitous Splash removes 40 evasion. So you could also think of that. I mean, effectively, you're like adding 40 accuracy to yourself for that unit. And she is within about 40 accuracy of where Elda is. Now, Elda is accurate enough that he's not very often going to miss much of anything. Even, and this really helps us into Yuffie because we're accurate enough that sure hit evasion just isn't good enough here. And I think it's hard to say. Because if I'm not mistaken, I can fix this in the edit, but I think Yuffie has a magic barrier in play that is making it look as though Calamitous Splash isn't doing anything when we match up against her. Except for like the buffs and debuffs and stuff. The removal of her extra evasion, for instance, that's always a good thing with her, you know, regardless. But it seems like most of my characters can hit her pretty well, which is good. She's not necessarily the most evasive character, but she is the most evasive character that I'm aware of to have guaranteed hit avoidance. For characters that aren't using guaranteed hit avoidance, they're just going to get whacked really hard by Harvester from Joom, which is my guaranteed hit skill. That's just going to mess with everybody. But especially, I think you really have to balance out Joom for the possibility of guaranteed hit avoidance or nullification characters. Because that's really all she's got, and she is not accurate. A blinded Joom often can't hit people. So that's an issue. Like, she doesn't even have to be... She doesn't even have to be, like, up against evasion. You can just blind her and she won't be able to hit things in some cases. Or, at the very least, you blind her and it forces her to use Harvester all the time instead of her better moves. Really, blinding Joom the Spring Celestial can be a really clutch way to fuck her whole world up. because, her sustain is dependent on her ability to deal damage. And if she can't hit you and can't deal damage, she can't heal herself, and she's just going to be running into a lot of problems. But as you can see, there are a variety of things that this team can beat as designed. Because it is basically like the Bladestream Supremacy team in that she has the best debuffing capabilities of any UR 100 cost unit that is kind of modern accessible. She is very powerful in that respect. This team does really well with Bladestream that can help me counter Mont and Sephiroth and some other characters like that are really dependent on having a bunch of AP regeneration throughout the fight. This can also help us against physical teams. We don't have a lot against physical here except for Elda. Elda's all on one side of the field too, so that could really leave us open to physical in other places. But we're also really good into anti-magic. There's a lot of anti-magic capability that I mentioned and synergy between Jum and between Folka. There's also the synergy here that Jum in particular, and the reason that Folka is standing next to Jum and not Elda is because I want Reviving Stream to be able to get my Jum into a situation where she has courage and re-raise. And I think that that's pretty cool and pretty helpful using the double re-raise on her. But I think it's good that she prioritizes this. It's good that she prioritizes this over her elemental barrier buff thing, because I think that would potentially give her some issues into Sephiroth, but is also relatively strong. I'm just glad that she gets off the re-raise first, essentially. That's what I'm saying here. But we are rapidly moving higher and higher up in the ranks. And right now, I've actually just run into a team that I'm pretty excited about. There's a team that I theory crafted. So this team is going to be kind of the things that I'm looking for, both the mages, we have the evasion, we have a little bit of everything that I think that this team does well against. And there is another unit that has the potential for very, very high accuracy if you can get her to use her LB more consistently, maybe. Let's say the testing for this character went even more poorly than things for Folka have, but Omnilus does have guaranteed hit added to her kit through her limit burst, so as long as she opens with her limit burst, she is maybe more accurate in some ways than Elda. She's also a much more anti-magic unit than Elda is, so I feel like if you want an aggressively anti-magic variant, then this is kind of the way to go. Also, I could see an argument for putting Omnilus near Folka so that Omnilus re-raises, so that Folka re-raises Omnilus. And also maybe Omnilus gets the threshold heal onto Folka. That's probably a better composition than what I'm about to run, which is really just substituting Elda for Omnilus in this composition. But I'm going to test this out for a little bit just to see what it do. And at least on paper, I thought that this first team was going to be exactly what I would want to face off against. But, well, I'll let you see how it goes. Let me quit spoiling things. But also, it looks like I'm going to be doing a little bit of a building montage here. So, while we're here, let me say thank you so much for watching. You've been tuned in for about 20 minutes now. We're about halfway through the video. Thank you so much. Remember that the free-to-play option for YouTube is to like and subscribe. You can also leave some tasty comments down there in the comments section. Tell me what you think about this, about Folka, about building Folka, about Veritas, about War of the Visions, about FFBE, about, I don't know, the Healer Strike in Final Fantasy XIV, if you play. I don't know. I don't know enough about that to have like any real strong opinions, but I hear where the healers are coming from. I just don't know enough about the game dynamics to know if they're full of shit or not. So who knows? If you have any comments on that, though, let me know in the description. And I'm sorry, let me know in the description. Why do I always think comments are in the description? This is what I always say. I don't... Has anybody caught me saying this before? I think I edit it out most of the time, but I've said it a number of times. What is in the description, though, is a link that will show you how to find other Jackie Fox content on the internet. I do have a main YouTube channel, as well as a podcast version of that main YouTube channel that I've been posting to a lot more frequently lately. But yeah, check out that link in the description. Not only are you going to find more Jackie Fox all over the internet, in addition to a podcast, if you just want to listen, chill, and listen to me talk about things that are happening in the world, we can do that. That's what the podcast is for. But there is also ways to donate to the channel, both one-time or recurring. And in addition to all of that, you can also buy my books. I am a fiction author. I have written stories that are both kind of based on kind of real world type stuff, a little bit more of a grungy techno dystopia. Or I have books that were written based on tabletop campaigns within a game that I designed myself that was also based on my fictional worlds as well. So really fun piece of content there. That one's called Athena's Chosen. And there is a sequel to that was written in the same way. But also, if you're looking for that more realistic and gritty fiction, then we have It Even Happens While We Sleep, which is kind of my look into what would happen if we literally had corporations attempting to control our very dreams. Anyways, as you can see here, we're doing things. We're having trouble hitting Elena, though. Apparently, she's just a little bit too evasive for this whole team. I'm not surprised that she's evading June, but I would have thought that at least Folka might be able to hit her. Although Folka might be prioritizing moves that also would do good damage against Helena. So maybe not focusing on her anti-evasion stuff. Maybe it was the grouping of those two characters together that was what was so helpful in allowing maybe that was what was so helpful in allowing Helena to survive there, was that she was close enough to Helena that I was trying to use other skills that would be able to do damage to Helena, and I wasn't really focusing on the fact that I need to deal with Elena, and that those skills are not, while they may do more damage to them in theory, if they don't hit Elena, that is a problem. So, also kind of seeing why Helena's good though. Kind of seeing why even today Starlight Elena can be a force within the top 20 in guild battle, because look, if you can't deal with her evasion and if you can build her to be just evasive enough, it's a serious problem. Like, people who are saying that evasion is dead, I'm here using an anti-evasion team and still finding ways to get my ass beat by evasion. So, okay, so we've both cleared off the slot 1 character. We're down to our slot 2s and 3s for both of us. Ooh, but we do have a curse on our healer, which is not good. Oh, that's going to invalidate her re-raise. I think they just have too much good stuff on the board for June to be able to beat them, but I don't know. She can recover her health. Maybe she can sustain through this. Kind of doubt it, but we have done the AP denial. So they are just kind of tickle fighting her at this point. She still has her threshold heal, so good luck tickling. But also, if they tickle enough, they're eventually going to get the AP to use actual skills, which could be a real problem for my Joom here. But, you little fucker. Oh, yes. Okay, cool. So it absolutely devolved into a slap fight. And that could have gone even worse, but again, the impact of Folka's first turn Bladestream and the ability for her to make that last for an extra turn, I think is really what enabled me to win that slap fight. That is probably not a fight or a team that I should have won, especially with how many people got cursed or what people got cursed early on, but I did. This team, however, look, just wait. Just wait, because I'm still fucking upset about this one. Alright. Most accurate member of my team. Can't hit Bradley. That's not even the evasion unit here. I know I can't hit Lucio because the team is so good that I can't even fucking hit Bradley. What chance do I have of hitting Lucio? You know? Now, I guess Joom here might be able to really mess Lucio up with Harvester, but I think with this many allies in range, she's not going to be using a single target skill. Or I guess she's, she got re-raise. She might be using skills. Oh, she did use a single target skill, but against Bradley, and it missed. So,
I need to reapply my hypnosis.
The, people who are saying that evasion is dead, or even, quote-unquote, beyond dead, as I heard a JP streamer say recently. I don't know. Maybe things have changed tremendously in a month, or maybe this is kind of a niche that you just haven't seen enough. Like, it wins. It wins. I can show you in JP data to this day that evasion edges out other teams in terms of performance. Having some evasion on your team is going to win you matches. So I don't know how people can really say that, except to say that these aren't the most popular teams. They're outperforming the popular teams, and maybe if everyone was running them, they wouldn't do so well. Maybe more people, they're doing well because they are a niche and because more people aren't speccing into beating them. But as you see, even sometimes when you do spec into beating them, you can still lose and have some really serious difficulties against them, and sometimes even characters that should be able to deal with evasion just kind of fail to. Well, this team is absolute jank. That being said, though, I think... Is there a Sephiroth on 1? Yeah, this is going to be a Sephiroth on 1 match. God damn it. I think this is maybe the point where I realize the pattern that Sephiroth on 1 is just really bad for this team formation. Again, if I rearranged my units, it would be a little bit different, but as they're set up right now... Oh, God. Yeah, especially with all my re-rays being on the side of the field that lines up with Sephiroth. Also, this is a really good argument for slot 1 Sephiroth in general on this map. Put him up front, because this is lining you up typically with 2 other people, and that's just going to be the most effective way to get his slaughter off. And you can definitely see that effectiveness as I go up against these jank teams that probably, don't have the synergy to rub together to beat me properly. But because they line up such a powerful mechanic with 2 of my characters that need their healing, it can really become a serious problem for me. Oh, we lost our threshold heal. Oh, one turn too early. I do have re-raise on June, so she survived through. The re-raise actually ended up still proccing, even though, unlike properly, even though I got cursed. It didn't remove re-raise. It just delayed my ability to use it. And once again, June was able to sustain around to being on the other side of the curse. Not the way I would really recommend dealing with that, though. But now we are starting to get into the higher ranks. I only have a few more videos to show you, as this showcase is going to cut out somewhere around maybe the 500 ranks, just because I ran out of refills for the day. But I think I've really said most everything that I want to say about this team and about Folka. Actually, while this is playing out, let me talk about her kit a little bit. Okay, so Still Waters, as I was talking about, increased buff and debuff duration. That can be helpful for her. Also nullifies poison, sleep, and stun. Poison is getting out of hand common. It's a thing that I wanted to see more of because of its ability to nullify regen, and they're definitely leaning into that. Like, I feel like in a degree they're I don't know. Are they taking a lesson? I feel like I write this into my characters when I did some of my theory craft designs. But poison is becoming a lot more popular. Sleep is very popular as well, and stun is just very powerful. There are also definitely teams that rely on sleep and stun together. There's definitely sleep teams as well, and there's also definitely teams that have access to poison. So these are pretty good nullifications. I gotta say, I really did not like this passive at first, but I think it's pretty important for her. Blade Soul lore, though, is a really interesting one. I do also enjoy this. Her counter will both decrease water resistance and give herself a really helpful heal. She has double auto revive, the ability to inflict, confusion, poison, paralyze, and then when we look into sub-job, also silence and confusion. Some more confusion round 2. Looking at buffs, let's look at buffs next. So elemental power, 20 elemental resistance for ally and self, 30 defense and spirit, and for herself, a magic damage reduction barrier of 3 times. This is probably the buff that she is least likely to use, or the one that she is most likely to use last. And this will apply to herself and one other ally. So pretty neat. It kind of follows the same targeting as Stars of Swiftness. Definitely like that. We got the double re-raise, I mentioned that. The other buff, well, this isn't really a buff. When this says dispel all ailments, if you look at this in game, and there is an example of me showing this in this video somewhere, you will see that this does actually deal with curse. So I think all Asunagas should be able to deal with curse. It would be curious to know if Asuna in White Mage does. I can look at that for her. So a couple of things that she has here in terms of attacks. Calamitous Splash is one that gets upgraded. This is going to decrease evasion rate before dealing damage. So this effectively raises her accuracy for this hit, or at least against this character. Everyone's accuracy against this character, I guess, by 40. So if you build up her accuracy enough, which is, it's not as high as I'd like it to be, honestly, for this kind of thing. But 220 mod, so this could do a lot of damage as a single target. It has a plus 30% hit chance. So there's another 30% chance to hit. This is basically 70 accuracy. You could think of it that way, as 70 accuracy on the skill. It will also dispel haste, decrease AP, decrease all attacks resistance, and removes their ability to CT up for 3 turns. This is really good against Yuffie. A lot of evasion characters like to run haste to further increase their agility, to further increase their evasion. Also, Yuffie likes to dodge people and use the dodge to increase her CT. That's her main counter. It's an interesting capability, but I think this definitely fucks with it a lot. Also, decrease all attacks resistance by 15% is just pretty brutal, but also losing 15 AP is also pretty good. So this can do a lot of things with a lot of people, but I think it's a really potent piece of kit for anti-evasion, and definitely one of the things that kind of shows you what you should be doing with her, I think. Because like units like Yuffie, she's going to be really good against. Swift Current is more for boosting her damage on skills after this. It's going to give her Spirit and Magic Attack Resistance Penetration of 40 for 3 turns. There is no other skill like this in the game that gives you 2 different types of penetrations like this on the same skill for 3 turns. This is very powerful, and this is basically penetration crack for her. Like, this takes her from being just a mage to being more of a tank buster, which is pretty nuts. It does it before dealing damage too, so there's not like downtime here either. Pretty cool. Mist is a large AoE attack that reduces water resistance 25% for targets before dealing damage, 185 mod. It's going to also cast Overflow and have a chance to inflict poison and paralyze. So Overflow is going to give an ally extra CT, 150 CT, so about 15% of a turn. This is also, because of these skills here, Poison is going to be really good against Courage. Paralyze is just like stun on crack in a way. It's so very good. 80% chance of paralysis for 3 turns, I feel, is just really strong. You're basically you're likely stunned for 3 turns. So I guess you have a chance of getting out of that, but maybe not. Really, especially like looking at her into the Sephiroth meta, I think Asunaga is actually pretty important for her. I've talked about her sub-jobs before. Blade Soul is probably the way I would go as a stronger DPS thing. White Mage, I mean, really, you're making some of the same decisions here that you're making with Sylvie. So this is a very Sylvie-esque character, except that she's not oriented quite as much into healing. And then looking at the Limit Burst, this is a big boy. It's going to decrease Spirit by 38, which is quite a lot, before dealing damage. 240 mod, so it's going to deal quite a bit of damage. It's also going to decrease defense by 30, not quite as big as the decrease in Spirit, but wow. So this is definitely going to help her physical companions deal more damage and decrease AoE resistance for 3 turns by 30%, which is also pretty great to see here. So defense, Spirit, and AoE resistance, this is going to be great for enabling AoE teams to just rip through your opponents. So pretty cool. Welcome to day 2 of the Folka showcase. Today we're going to be trying a slightly different team. So I figured if I was using the first Veritas TMR on her, I might as well switch to the second, which is hers. And I do actually have footage of her using the buddy buff, and it is the only thing that will make her group up with other people. That, you know, she doesn't have many things that are like this in her kit. Sure, she can get them from, I think, Blade Soul has Sword Song formation, which isn't necessarily ideal for her, but could actually work to get her to group up if you need to do that. I think having several turns of debuff resistance or debuff reduction could actually be a really beneficial thing. The thing is, in a bit of testing, that buff didn't improve the situation over the Bladestream. I really wanted it to. I wanted this to be cool, and maybe there are teams out there in which it would be, but the main teams that I'm thinking about, the biggest debuffers in the game, are better mitigated by starving them of their AP than anything else. So it really became a why would you use this situation? And the answer to that is surprising. Folka has some issues with base accuracy to some degree, and her TMR actually goes a long way in fixing this. It is by far the most accurate TMR that I own, which is pretty cool and probably makes it useful for a lot of other characters, even if you aren't using its buff. So that's actually pretty neat. The other thing about the changes to her build, I actually went into her trust runes, and let me make a dirty little confession here. I've been running shield and speed trust runes on literally everybody. I don't even really look too hard at them. Some characters I actually do give individualized kind of setups, but usually that's just switching them over to barrier or maybe even HP. Usually I don't go too far beyond that. But for her, I found it interesting to play with doing shield or maybe even HP. I think HP could be really cool for her for getting the all elemental resistances. I don't know. It feels like Sephiroth is probably going to target her in any scenario, and maybe running curse resistance on your trust runes is also a really important thing here that I haven't taken the time to grind out for this video, and it definitely would help. It is a major turning point in battles, and really the thing that keeps me safest from it, as I've said in my commentary on beating Sephiroth in his showcase, is that, AP denial is an amazing strategy for this. You often see him with Ashen Mon as well. AP denial is a great strategy for him. It just works against both of them really well, and it also works with other people that they like to run with too. And her ability to extend this buff one more turn actually makes it a lot more impactful than I think it was ever maybe meant to be. Like, Emerald Echo has definitely been a thing for a while, but there hasn't been a character that's had this type of effect. Or not many. I mean, there probably are more than I think, and I just overlooked them. If you can think of a couple more, leave those in the comments, other modern characters. I mean, if you're going into a purely mono-earth standoff, I've already shown this combo off, but putting this and Emerald Insight, which does the same thing but other stuff, it's an upgraded version of Emerald Echo. Using this on Helena, the MR version, also gives you a unit that is incredibly good at giving earth resistance, in addition to giving also defense, which is really important here, or even spirit at this point, I think, which isn't very important for countering earth at the moment, but it is what it is. So I decided to switch her over to this higher accuracy build, and while it did do a good job of hitting evasion units more often, I can't find as many of them in the meta to fight. That's an issue. There's also situations where I run into these fights and just lose. In part because these evasion teams are going to be centered around either or maybe both Sephiroth and Ashen Mon for the most part right now, other than ones that would be... I still haven't found any more like Helena or maybe Lock teams or anything like that, like light evasion. I think fire and earth evasion are just too dangerous on other principles for me to be able to run her full accuracy, because I really need the AP denial. And I think that actually makes a strong argument for switching her over to aim trust runes to at least get her half of the way there. But also switching her back, you can really see how much of an impact this has in a fight. Because moving back to my original build just to prove that, because I felt like I had broken the composition to a certain point. I was winning certain matches. I was winning matches that I should have won, but I was also losing matches that I should have won too. And usually because they just went too long and people had too much AP in the end game and I could not continue to sustain past them. That was really my biggest issue. And again, the AP mitigation would have basically solved all of those fights. That's how I was feeling. So I switched back to the old team. I moved all of my equipment back, saved some changes to armor just to make the team a little bit more durable. I think that actually was a measurable improvement. The army plate just being a pretty cool option. Even though I do like the Thornlet, I think that the army plate really benefits Elda because he is the one unit that's going up against physical very well, and he is also, I mean, there's a lot of physical that I'm having to go up against because I also can't find enough mages to counter with this team. It seems that Joom's proliferation has pretty much beaten them out of the meta, or at least like magic heavy teams. I find like one-off magic units, but so a lot of the things that this version of the team from day 2 is really better suited into, it's either not actually better suited into, or those teams only exist in my head and I can't find them in Arena. So switching back, I actually made the mistake of leaving her TMR ability turned off. So she has the Bladestream, which actually increases her speed and gets her moving a little bit more. And again, she's moving into her buff pattern. I want you to be able to see her all-elemental defense and spirit buff because that thing is really cool. Unfortunately, it's a little bit stacked, at least for her, into being really good into magic. Again, hard to find the teams for that. But I wanted you to see her get this buff off because it's another one that is really powerful with Still Waters and getting an additional turn, because these are powerful effects. They're essentially 2 layers of defense that wrap around everything. 2 layers of all damage mitigation, redundant all damage mitigation in a way. For 4 turns instead of 3, that can just be a really big impact in the fight. The thing is, even that, as cool as that sounds, is not preferable to starting the game with AP denial. I cannot stress how important and how prescient my call out for, like, look, this is a next generation TMR and a level that we have not seen when Veritas of the Wind came out. Bladestream is proving again and again to be one of the most important TMRs, and understanding how to extend its buff pattern so that it does a little bit more seems to be important, or at the very least, it's the best thing that Veritas of the Waters can do on turn 1, which also may say things about her kit. But it still seems to work, and I'm not going to question it. Why beat a dead horse? This team is working, so thank you very much for watching. And if there's more video, I don't know, I might have talked on through all of my footage, but if there is more video, I'll let you see that process play out for yourself instead of just hearing me describe it to you. And with that, let's go to the outro. With nothing else to say to you about Our Lady of the Waters, best of luck building her. Everyone should be able to build her, and honestly, like, it's not even as hard as I made it out to be in my initial video. I think it's gotten easier. Less people are playing Arena in some ways, or maybe people are getting burnt out because of chasing this character. But it's not hard to really minimize your efforts and maybe just do your 5 runs a day and still end up getting 60 medals at the end of the week. Her staff is going to take a while to build, but her as a character getting to max Reincarnations, it'll take you a few months of concerted effort, but after you're done with it, you will have this character, and she's great. She's not maybe the best thing in the game. She's probably not even in the top 10, which is a little unfortunate, but she also does what she does pretty well, and she can fill in a spot in your team, and if you don't, like, she's also in a really, really strong element and does a lot for that element specifically. Water is so strong right now, you guys. If you don't have a third strong water unit, Folka could be it. Like, I'm not saying that there's teams that are already running like the best water units that need to switch in Folka. That may not be ideal. But if you have 2 out of 3 of the better water units and you need a third, she is free. She is free for everyone to build. So I think that she's definitely a good character, definitely worth considering. And, like, personally, while she can be a little hit or miss and she definitely doesn't work well against certain things, this was a character that's a huge sentimental favorite for me. Like, she was my first Veritas unit in War of the Vision. Fuck me. In Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, and I was so enamored with, like, their design. I thought they were such cool villains that I was super happy to play with her. And even after she became incredibly outdated, I just kept finding ways to make her work, especially in PvP. Oh my god, status was ridiculous as a mechanic within PvP within FFBE, and the fact that she had a lot of it made her an incredible PvP unit until, like, Noctis Fire Flask era. Fire Flask just broke shit. But anyways, thank you all for watching. I'm Jackie Fox, and this is Fox Talks Gaming. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, the free-to-play option for YouTube is to like, subscribe, and comment, but also you can donate through the link in the description. You can also buy my books, which is also kind of a donation, but you get a cool book out of the deal. Isn't that neat? Thank you so much, and with all that being said, I'll see you in the next one.
We are the victors! Well done, all of you.